And we'll continue with the fourth chapter of Emma in Winter by Penelope Farmer. That night, Emma dreamed of hyacinths, a great bowl of them, in which inexplicably appeared Bobby's face. Then the bowl was his face, and below it was his body, and she saw that it had wings and was flying. Then, indeed, it was no hyacinth bowl at all, only Bobby without wings, and they were both flying together in broad daylight above the downs. They must have risen a little higher in the air now, because she could see not only over their own south downs, but across to the north downs also, far away and across the other way to the sea. Hill and valley alike were covered in forest as before, but it was a changing forest, for tall, gaunt pine trees with prickly needles and cones like baby pineapples were replacing the frill-leaved oaks, the gray, quiet beech trees, and the bony elms, and all with the ceaseless shifting pattern of movement they had seen on their previous journeying. But now, Emma, watching, understood the reason for what she saw, that the trees grew smaller and sank back into the earth because she and Bobby were journeying back in time, and she was pleased that she understood and enjoyed her understanding, though still, even in the dream, wishing it had been her own discovery. Then she became aware that as the forest changed, the air changed with it also. Growing colder all the time, she flew vigorously to escape the chill, moving arms and legs more than necessary to fly, and saw Bobby beside her do just the same. It grew colder and colder quickly, and the landscape changed more swiftly still. Now, where the trees vanished back into the earth, none came to replace them until the forest had disappeared altogether, and the land was bleak and bare-looking with nothing upon it but rocks gray and pointed, and little twisted trees like spikes, both trees and rocks, wreathed in a thick, dry moss that curled on them like ivy, or streamed out wildly like hair, as green as limes, or tawny as camels. The trees grew fewer still, but the rocks spread out their tumbled rubble everywhere. And then there were no trees at all. Then Emma felt the air freeze up and saw the snow creep over the rocky, treeless land. At first she saw brief color flashes amid the snow, as if summers came, with gentians and rock roses and brilliant emerald grass, and were as swiftly gone. But these flashes became fewer and less bright until snow conquered everywhere, and everywhere was white until ice wrapped itself all over the land. Streams that had tumbled loosely were now grown still. They were like tongues of ice sliding back across the land, back to join the greedy sheet of ice, the great glacier which moved back also, away from the sea. It was all so strange that Emma did not at once realize the strangest thing of all, that the streams of ice pushed the glacier back, or were pulled by it, and were not pushed on forward as they should have been. She thought, "It's the wrong way round," but thought immediately, "Of course, just like the trees grew backward too." And she knew then why it was. She thought also briefly and a little impatiently that it would be nice to see something the right way around for a change, a tree growing upward or a glacier pushing down. Things were most confusing as they were. But when she looked at Bobby's face, she saw, with a brief annoyance, that he did not seem confused at all. The coldness of the ice leapt up at her. She could see great chasms and crevices there, and suddenly, as she peered into their depths, she found herself falling, with Bobby first, through the air toward the glacier, but then between walls of ice that shone a clouded blue like jewelry. Down, down the cold beat on her skin, and where her hands grazed the icy, shiny walls, they were burned as if by fire, until all at once her feet jarred and her body jarred after it, and she stood deep in the chasm on a hard ice floor. At first, to be still seemed so strange that she felt no fear at all, not even when she looked up and saw the chasm walls reach far above her head, to a piece of sky no bigger than a fingernail. Down here the ice was the deep, deep blue of the sea far from land, but up there, nearer the sky, it became a paler turquoise color, full of light, like the shadows on a seashore. She had forgotten Bobby, meanwhile, but now felt his hands tug at her sleeve, and when she turned to him, he was smiling, apparently speaking, though she could not hear what he said. He was looking upward, and her gaze followed his back to the tiny sky. It was then, all at once, that she grew frightened. Suppose they could never escape from the chasm. Suppose they had to stay here, walled in ice forever. She remembered reading that even when you died, your body would not decay if trapped in ice, but would stay as it was until the ice melted away. Would this happen to them? Could it happen in a dream? Was it even a dream? Her brain, puzzling, could hardly remember what was dream and what was not, for this seemed all the reality now. She looked at Bobby to see if he might know, forgetting that he could not tell her if he did, but he smiled stiffly, a little miserably even, and did not look as if he knew anything at all. The cold hurt now. Emma hopped from one foot to the other, flexed first her right leg, then the left, shook each arm hard in turn, and banged them around her, thumpingly, but it was only when she was hopping again, back and forth, that she remembered what she had till now so stupidly forgotten. She looked at Bobby urgently, jerking her head upward. Then tentatively she jumped, trying to fly, and of course she could fly, easily, and so soared up toward the paler turquoise ice and the fingernail of sky. Bobby's hands brushed on her heels as he followed her, but she soon left him far behind. She burst into the open air at last, waited only briefly for Bobby to catch up, before flying up so high in her huge relief that she could see as far as the sea itself, to the icebergs riding there like great castles, turreted and battlemented too. The sun shone down on the ice, and it flashed blindingly blue again, and green in a clear pink, in a clear sun pink. And a clear sun pink. The light rose so dazzlingly, the colors blending in such a bright and fiery white, that Emma closed her eyes to escape being blinded. But as she closed them, a darkness fell on her, and sleep came back, and she dreamed no more that night. And we will pause there.